who knows what all interesting things are out there. And it's one of the nice aspects of being an attorney or being a judge. You can delve really deeply into very narrow areas and just really learn a lot. I did a case involving glue. I learned a lot about glue. I know quite a bit about it now. It's sticky.
Dynamite Mike, podcast that you like.
It's an honor to be here.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on, Lisa.
So, how are things going? What would you say is your highlight episode so far?
Ooh, there's a lot of good ones. Right off the top of my head, I would say the one with Alan Nolan, the fighter pilot.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
He was the F-16 fighter pilot. He was on. He told me, learned a lot of unique things about how the planes bank and the G-force and how the F-16 kills a lot of people because if you're not careful with it, because it can sustain Gs. And it's those G's that pass people out and kill them.
So did he tell you how he withstands the death force of G?
Well, they go through training. So the pilots have to go through that rigorous training with the G-force deal where you sit down and he talked about that. They go until you pass out. And he said he talked of like what his G number was before he passes out. And I forget, but everyone's got their own G number that they can before they pass out. Yeah.
Has he ever passed out in the airplane itself while he's banking?
Not that I'm aware of.
He didn't admit to that?
No.
How closely did you cross-examine him?
Probably not that good then, but he was a real responsible commander and pilot, so I would assume that, yeah.
Well, sometimes if you ask, they'll admit to having a friend who may have passed out in the airplane. It didn't happen to me, but my friend passed out.
That would be a scary experience to know that you were just in a turn, you pulled a G, and then you wake up. Or like anything. Like you're driving a car, you're taking a right turn. You're doing a U-turn real quick, and doing that U-turn causes your body to physically pass out. And by the time you wake up, you're 50 yards down the road, like on the side, like, oh.
I'm sure that with all the licensed drivers in this state, there's got to be a couple, 3, that actually have that. Mm-hmm. Right? Don't ever tell them make a U-turn because you're taking your life in your hands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that sounds like a real top guest.
Yeah, he was a good guest, but he's no lawyer, he's no judge. But then we did have Judge Andy Van Winkle come on too, so you can always talk about judge. There's that related thing. And but the guess it's all about what their stories, how well they tell a story. And you're a good storyteller, so I'm gonna shut up now.
So you want to hear stories from the trenches and stories from the benches, is that right?
Yes.
Well, I do have one story that might be interesting to you. It's my understanding that you have a background in the military. Mm-hmm. So I was a traveling federal prosecutor for labor violations, specifically for the federal government. And so we were always traveling around, and because you're traveling around all the time, you don't have courtrooms everywhere. So we're always looking for space to try a case. Is there a spare courtroom? Is there a courtroom that's unscheduled? So I was on I think it was an Air Force base, and we were supposed to be in their courtroom. And at the last minute, I got called in and told, we're bouncing you and your trial. Of course, I had witnesses and subpoenas, and it was pretty, I was all dressed up, ready to go. I was I had already traveled physically in the courtroom. Oh, yeah, we decided we're going to have a court-martial hearing instead of your trial. So I got to sit through, because I had to wait, I had no choice. I had to sit through, and it was very interesting, a court-martial of what looked to me like a very young airman. And I was impressed that he was shackled, hands and feet. Not what I was used to in my home state. And I kind of thought, well, what do you expect him to do if you don't shackle his feet, I mean, where could he run? We were on a base. I mean, he was never going to get anywhere. And he was in his uniform, so he seemed, to some extent with the program. And I don't really remember how severe his violations were. But it was an opportunity to learn about that Uniform Code of Military Justice and how sort of the jury replacement mechanism worked and so forth. So I'm wondering if you had studied that based on your time in the military. Did you have a chance to study the Uniform Code of Military Justice?
Yeah, they kind of forced it down our throat. Well, not the whole thing, just the basic general orders and the basic larceny, general, or 121 is larceny. Each thing you do, there's a certain order attached to it.
And there is some sort of jury-like mechanism, right?
Yeah, so the jury could be a jury of your peers, or it depends on what court-martial. There's special, general, and I forget the other one. But general court-martial is what everybody thinks of when it comes to a trial.
I think the one that I observed might have been drug-related. What would that be?
The general.
Yeah. And then there was some sort of jury, but I can't remember if it was officer-looking people or regular people looking.
Yeah, so it would be a jury of their peers. So it would be people in their command, not necessarily of the same rank, but people in their command. Usually, like when I was a bailiff on a person's court-martial, because I didn't want to be in the jury. Because they try to make me do jury duty. And I'm like, I don't want to do it. And
nobody wants to do it.
Because I didn't want to dress up, because they make you dress up in your Charlies. But either way, long story short, I noticed that all of them that were trying the person were within one rank below or above that person.
Do you think that worked well?
Oh, yeah. I think justice was served that day. Like, he was found not guilty, and very much so, he was not guilty.
And you were in court every day, right? You heard all of the evidence and you observed all of the witnesses.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
So that's an interesting perspective, right?
Yes. And what's interesting about that is the court-martial, they had a big court-martial prior where this guy was found guilty, but he didn't have his shackles on. And he busted out the back door, past the judge, jumped up past the judge, out the back door, and was gone. It was that large.
But how far could he get, really?
I don't know, but they couldn't catch him. He was that large. Yeah.
How long did that last?
As far as I know, they never got him. So.
Right, so he's still out there.
As far as I know. But I'm sure they got him by now. But
right, it's a short-lived thing.
Yeah, but it was a thing, so they were like, yeah, we're not going to have to... They didn't... Because... Well, they were worried about that. They're like, make sure that he doesn't run. Because I was the bailiff, and they were worried he would go past, and because I was right there by the door. But either way, no, that didn't happen.
Well, found not guilty, right?
Yeah, found out not guilty.
That would be a reason to stay and do a dance on the council table.
Mm-hmm.
Probably frowned on, but I'm just guessing.
Yeah. So go back in your past. Let's go back all the way to when you decided to go to law school. How long ago was that? Or no, what was that like? What was your decision?
I liked the analysis aspect. I didn't know much about legal analysis, but I understood analysis. And I liked the fact that legal analysis tended not to favor pulling on heartstrings. It seemed to favor more organized, linear thinking. And I felt very comfortable with the idea that I would be doing that every day for my career. That was very attractive to me. It seemed like it would be easy to track, right? Linked linear thinking with support.
Yeah.
So that was appealing to me. And there was really no reason not to go. It's not as expensive as medical school. Which was going to be tough to afford. And so, started sort of investigating, and I guess I was in high school, maybe a sophomore, kind of young. So I didn't know much. So, started asking around. Found maybe a relative or two who knew some attorneys. Maybe they weren't attorneys, but they, were friendly with an attorney. Maybe they played golf with an attorney or something like that. And so I got a chance to speak to a few people who knew a few things, and it really seemed like a good fit with my skills. So when I went to college, I actually applied for a very special pre-law program. I was at Manhattanville College first for my freshman year, and actually got rejected. I was not accepted. I've been an attorney for a long time, and I've been a judge on the Superior Court of Los Angeles bench, and I handle big matters now as an arbitrator and a hearing officer, but somebody or somebodies for my freshman year thought I was not a good bet for the pre-law program. And what's interesting is, I was very friendly with the people who were accepted, and, they would leave their law books lying around, and I would take a look at their case books and things, and it was very interesting. And I think there were about a half a dozen people in that program. It was a brand new program and kind of small at the time. And of those 6, 0 of them went to law school. But here I am.
Outbeat them all.
Beat them all. So I know this is the right profession for me. And I knew it fairly early on. And then went on to a law school where I feel like I had very dynamic professors and some wonderful colleagues, other students. We're all still in touch. I still see I'm in touch with my contracts professor, and I still see my civil procedure professor's family, and the guy who sat next to me, still friendly with him, still see him whenever I'm in Baltimore.
Nice.
Yeah. It's a very collegial group, and it's an interesting aspect, which I didn't even realize until I was much more advanced in my career, is that we fight like maniacs when it matters, right? When we're on the record, when we're drafting pleadings, when we're making motions, when we're arguing. But the minute we're off the record, the minute we're done with that advocacy portion of the case or of our interaction, we're all very helpful and understanding and very, very collegial. And I wish the public could see more of that. We do it all the time, and we're comfortable with it. If you can't do it, you can't be an attorney successfully. You'll just make a lot of enemies, and then no one will cooperate in the slightest with whatever you need for your client. So it just seemed to me that if the public could see that it's possible to give everything you have to the advocacy and to the fight, and then the minute the court reporter stops recording, you can shake hands and help each other carry boxes to the car and do whatever needs to be done. That's not going to compromise the case, but it's not going to hurt anybody to be a professional and to honor your obligations to professionalism and to ethics as an attorney. And I've seen it. I had a case, I think this was before COVID because it was in person, and we had a new assistant in the courtroom, a young man. I remember he was wearing a blue blazer, and he was very new to the job. And there was, I was the hearing officer, and there was a former AUSA, assistant U.S. attorney on one side, and then there was, I think, the head of a department on the other side for the government. Pretty high level. I was surprised. And pitched battle on the record. Fighting. Then we went off the record, and the new assistant in the courtroom, and I can't remember his name, happened to mention that his family was trying to start a restaurant in the city. And both of the attorneys who had just been at each other 1 minute earlier were offering all kinds of legal advice for this young man who certainly could never have afforded to pay private lawyers to give him advice like this. It was probably $1,000 worth per hour of legal advice on how to start a restaurant and where the potholes are and where the submerged rocks are and what to look out for and how to do it and, what's your plan. And now all of a sudden everybody's on the same side and we're all trying to help out this, guy who's new to the job. And then we went back on the record and boy, they were back at each other's throats. And I thought, too bad the public can't see that and see that it can be done. And it doesn't compromise or undercut anybody's value. Mm-hmm. So that was just one example that was played up right in front of me. But it happens all the time. And a lot of people would have a lot of trouble with that. But we have to, we have to just think linear analysis, well supported. You really can't get tangled up in you think somebody else's argument is, dangerous to your client. Yeah, well, that's scary. But you can't let it undercut your professionalism.
Yeah.
So that was one kind of interesting case. Once we had some facilities use problem. I don't know exactly what happened, but instead of getting the room we were contracted for to try a case, I had to try a case in a storeroom. And they had just gotten a big shipment of computers, so there were a lot of really big computer boxes. And so that was my desk, was a computer box. And opposing counsel was next to me with his own computer box desk. And we had an administrative judge, and we did an entire hearing on computer boxes in a storeroom. And what I learned from that was you really don't need a lot of trappings, right? We had jurisdiction, and we were ready to go, and we did. So now, no matter how beautiful the paneling or, how plush the seating, I'm really focused on, do we have constitutionally sound basis for jurisdiction? If yes, let's go. Mm-hmm. And if no, we really got to pull back. We can't be wasting time with inadequate jurisdiction. I mean, was there proper service? Well, let's talk about it. And if it needs to go up on appeal, maybe it needs to go up on appeal. So those basic, simple things, people think, hire a service company, serve somebody, get them served. Well, maybe not so simple. Mm-hmm. Is it the right person? Is it the right location? Is it, not always so easy to figure out. So we spend a lot of time on what seem like simple issues that can torpedo an entire case.
Mm-hmm. And just so you guys know, that's just one aspect. So you've got, let's go into the different aspects of what you do. So you've got the SEC.
Yes.
And you've got the Port Authority deal.
Yes.
And you've got the weed judge court, and then you got the other things.
And I've got the other things.
Yeah, arbitration as well as there's so much stuff. So you're also on the chair. You're the chair of the property taxes here.
And we're in a lull right now, and so I just want to let everybody know we take deadlines very seriously at the Board of Equalization. We don't have any flexibility. Our mandate is our mandate, and we don't have an opportunity to sort of think, well, in the interest of justice, we'll accept late filings and so forth. The state can entertain that, but we can't at our level. And so I just wanted to encourage everyone who looks at their property tax bill and their hair turns white. There is a mechanism for you to have your bill reviewed by people who are completely neutral, but just please stay on top of your deadlines, because I hate to see people do an entire do an entire appeal, and then we can't even hear it or decide it because you were 3 days late. So I would love to entertain all of your arguments and hear everything that you think is relevant. Just make sure you get in front of us. And we'd be more than happy to consider absolutely every aspect of your case to see if there's anything that can be addressed or might be addressed. And certainly if we're unable to fix anything, it's going to be only after a lot of deep thinking and extensive discussion among ourselves. So we take it very seriously. So yes, I'm on the homelessness task force, and we have a very small budget, which I think people don't realize. And we try to partner with providers of shelter beds and therapeutic services and so forth. And one of the most controversial aspects of what we do is we house your dog. We actually have a contract for a couple of weeks to house homeless dogs.
Oh.
Because I would say just about zero homeless people who have an opportunity to be connected with services and an opportunity to be housed are willing to take advantage of any of that if it means that they have to give away their dog. Their dog is a member of the family, and you would never give away a member of your family. So they can't take advantage of connections to services or transitional housing. So the city of Spokane Valley does have an ability to take care of your dog briefly while we're connecting you to services and finding the right placement for you. Then once you're placed, that organization that has taken on housing you and providing whatever services you need, they will then take care of whatever your pet needs are, and they'll deal with it. And they're very knowledgeable about it. But yes, we do find that homeless people are more comfortable saying yes to coming off the streets and getting the help that they need, knowing that once they're placed, they will be reunited with their pet. And I know it's a very controversial program, and sometimes people don't even believe that we do it, but it is my understanding that we actually do have a contract in place.
That's good to know. Who
Yeah.
would have thought?
Right? Saving Fido, you know.
Yeah.
But even if we did separate people from their pets, we would then have to do something with their pets. We can't just sort of turn them loose in the winter on the street. You know,
Or they go to scraps.
Well,
Nobody wants that. Even though scraps is a no-kill shelter, allegedly.
Right, but scraps is taxpayer supported, and there's no connection with the previous owner. Scraps doesn't pledge to return your dog to you once you're placed in a, let's say, residential substance treatment. You know, Scraps has no obligation to hold the animal, treat the animal, and then return the animal. Scraps has just a different mandate.
What a strange thing that people would, they love their dog so much that they're willing to not get their help that they need just so they know their dog is okay. It's really interesting. Several
years ago, there was a natural disaster, some sort of flood. I can't remember where. And there was a man being lifted off his roof in the middle of a flood by a helicopter, and he was holding his dog. And the helicopter pilot was saying through the PA system, "Drop the dog, drop the dog." And the man said, "I'm not dropping the dog, you drop me."
Oh.
And he did not drop that dog. That's a member of the family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone loves their dogs.
Yeah.
So let's go back in time. So from the time you graduated law school, let's do a quick synopsis from law school then
To the New York bar. I took the New York bar and practiced in New York. And then I was with the federal government and they offered me a transfer to California. And I had not lived in California before, so I thought, well, let's try it. So I packed a few boxes, not a lot of stuff, and landed in Los Angeles County and started working for the federal government there. And that's how I wound up prosecuting federal labor violations and enjoyed it. And there was a lot of travel. I had not traveled all that much before that. Traveling around the Southwest, sometimes had to go into Mexico. There are Americans working at the embassy there. I know this is going to sound like not the world's worst punishment, but one of the places I had to go for my job was Hawaii. Oh man, what a wonderful place.
Yeah, what a horrible place to have to go.
I had not been there before and could not believe this was part of the United States. It was so exotic and wonderful.
Which island?
More than one, because I had to hop around to deal with all different kinds of employees in all different kinds of settings. I did my first night dive. My first night scuba dive was in Hawaii. It was amazing. And one of the, I can't remember if it was a witness or just some sort of facilitator, was a native. And he said, I can show you where the ghosts live. And, he really showed me like the Hawaii that I don't think most tourists would even know exists, let alone where to find it. And so he was my guide. And, he really made me love that state. And then I also went to a Japanese tea ceremony. I had never been to an authentic, very cool, so cool.
I want to do that.
I still remember every single thing about it, even now. It was incredible. And just generally the diving there is fantastic. I've never seen starfish so large. Everything was so big. It was like diving in a Disney film. And we were able to add 2 weekends, weekend before and weekend after the trip, the work trip. So 4 days of enjoying the islands and, immersing in the culture. And then I remember the flight, I had a window seat on the flight out after my very first visit. And I watched out the window as that island just disappeared. And I was like watching the very, very last bit of green go past me in that window. And I had a really tough time leaving. Mm-hmm. And I had just stayed in a hotel room, let alone, let alone people who live there. I can't imagine anybody moving out of that state.
Yeah, funny, because my cousin just moved from Hawaii to Southern California, and he lives literally a block away from the beach. I'm like, how often do you guys go out to the beach? He's like, I don't, because it's so cold here.
Yes. Southern California.
Yeah.
It's freezing.
Right.
Oh, yeah, frigid, yeah. Well, in Southern California, when it's in the 60s, we break out our puffer coats.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like mittens and hats and scarves weather.
That's true.
It happens right away. And then the corollary to that is you forget how to drive in the snow.
Yeah, you'll forget how to drive in the snow.
Yeah. I learned to drive in New York. They had plenty of snow. Mm-hmm. And then went to Los Angeles and forgot how to drive in the snow. And then anytime I was in the Northeast and it snowed, I was like, wait, what? No, people can't possibly drive in this. This is slippery. Yeah. And I had learned to drive in that stuff, in slush and sleet and freezing rain, but you forget right away. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So cool. So when you were an attorney in Los Angeles, how long were you there for, and what tasks did you do? I was there for a while, and I tried labor cases. I did some investigating, which I enjoyed very much. And so I went to all kinds of tribal locations because there's employees there, and alleged labor violations and all kinds of military installations. I went to the base in Rosman Edwards, and went to the NASA museum there. I don't know if people realize there's a beautiful museum there with a bunch of spacesuits and all kinds of things, and sonic booms constantly, windows rattling all the time. They work on a lot of really interesting aircraft there. Got to see the dry lake bed, which, much, much longer than it looks on television. That is one big landing strip there. Went to naval bases, shipyards. I interacted a lot I went to Bremerton. I believe there's a shipyard in Bremerton. And also there's a couple in Los Angeles. And I was, an attorney in a suit dealing with employees who had labor beefs, kind of on the waterfront. It was a little bit of a tough environment, but I think being a New Yorker prepared me well. And I met a lot of really interesting people. The union was arranged where there was a council, and all the trades were represented at the council, and then there was the head of the council. So the head of the council was a very powerful guy on the waterfront. And he was very kind to me. And he was not always kind to everybody. So I was very thankful for that. And we worked very well together. And if you had told me when I went to law school that I would be dealing with, the head of the trades union on the waterfront, he was a shipwright, and I think his forearms were about the size of my thigh. I wouldn't have even known what you were talking about. But there I was, dealing with these alleged labor violations, dealing with management, dealing with witnesses and so forth. And they had a lot of really interesting jobs. There were some divers there, because it was a shipyard. A lot of welders. They had a crane from Germany that had been looted after World War II, Hermann the German. I don't know if you've ever heard of the crane Hermann the German.
No, never heard of that.
Cool. Hermann the German was very cool. It was a mobile crane, so it was much more useful. And it was just sort of an example of really superior German engineering. And there were two of them. Russia took one and the U.S. took the other. And somebody, I don't know who, got a beautiful shot of the nighttime unloading of Hermann the German, with all the spotlights and so forth. And I was able, because I did some work, in that environment, I was able to get a copy of that photo. That's why I don't know who took it. And I've had that framed in my office for a long, long time. I really believe that the key is to suit up and show up. You suit up and you show up. Yeah, you're going to try a case on a computer box, but you're going to get a lot of good experience, and you're going to really understand what's important. And if you suit up and show up, you're going to get a photo of Hermann the German, arriving in the United States right after the war. And, you'll talk to people who were there. And who knows what all interesting things are out there. And it's one of the nice aspects of being an attorney or being a judge. You can delve really deeply into very narrow areas and just really learn a lot. I did a case involving glue. I learned a lot about glue. I know quite a bit about it now. It's sticky. The stickier, the better.
And you also worked for a newspaper, too?
Yes. Mm-hmm. I worked for a legal newspaper, which is still around. Charlie Munger was my boss. That's how I met him. And I had not known anybody like him. That was not my world. And I was having trouble trying cases and being a mother to a very small child. So I wanted to do something that was a little less draining than litigation. And it was a lot of fun, and I learned a lot. I think the newspaper was an homage to Ben Franklin, as so many are. And that was a very important job because I had been laboring in obscurity as a government lawyer. And then I became much more high profile. And I really learned a lot about communications. And I think in the world in which we live now, communications is, or mastering it, understanding it. You don't have to necessarily control every aspect of it, but if you really don't understand communications, you're going to be really hamstrung in what you can accomplish and how far you can get and how satisfying you're going to find your efforts to accomplish whatever your goals may be. So it was a crash course on comms, which was great. I met a lot of professionals in public relations. You know, they were pitching me. I was an editor of a very lively publication, more than one actually. So these public relations professionals, you know, really gave me a master class. I just sort of watched what they did and how they did it, and it really illuminated a path. And so I remember thinking, I don't really know exactly where I want to go after this. You know, life is full of chapters. And so I thought, well, when this chapter ends, I don't really know where I want to go. But for some reason, Ronald Reagan was on my mind. And I thought, you know, he was the original spokesmodel, right, for appliances. And he eventually wound up the leader of the free world. And he was a spokesmodel. And I thought, you know, I actually have a degree, and I am maybe qualified to speak publicly on something, but I didn't know what. So when I met people, I would say, hi, my name is Lisa Miller, I'm the editor, and I'm available for public speaking. And people would always say, oh, what do you speak on? And I would always say, whatever you need. So my very first, somebody listened, and my very first invitation was to the Disneyland Hotel. It was a very big regional convention, might have even been national. And it was the Association of Associations, the A of A.
Oh.
Yes. And so you know how you always want to bring swag, or you want to give out swag bags? I worked at a newspaper. We don't have swag. What we have is tomorrow's newspaper today.
Oh.
So I brought a giant stack of filthy newspapers. I mean, I got covered in ink, but I put down my stack of tomorrow's news today, and people just gobbled it up. And that was an interesting little lesson for me as well, because other swag bags had, you know, spa gift cards and things that you know people would love. I would never have thought that a newspaper, especially, you know, the kind that rubs off on your hands with that newsprint, I never would have thought that it would have been that popular. But what I learned from that is, you know, if that's what you have, that's what you bring. No, I didn't have swag bags. I had filthy newspapers. So filthy newspapers, here we come. So loaded up my car. From then on, I always arrived with tomorrow's news today, and it was always very popular. But that got me started on public speaking, and eventually I wound up as a keynote for a statewide convention in law.
Very cool.
Yeah, no pressure there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I talked about how tomorrow connects with yesterday. It was very metaphysical. My slides, my PowerPoint slides were all illustrated by the Jetsons.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
they were in the past and in the future.
Ah. Yeah,
See, we still don't have flying cars,
that's true.
but we do have automatic maids, and it's called the iRobot.
Yeah, and it's fun to see how it's kind of coming around. I heard they're gonna remake the Jetsons. They're gonna do a Jetsons movie soon. I don't know.
I had not heard about that, but I would certainly go see
Yeah.
it. I don't care what the critics say, I'm going.
Yeah.
But could it possibly be better? I just don't know. I don't think so. How could it be better? It was perfect. What would you change about the Jetsons?
Oh, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, that was a thing of their point in time, and we'll see how well they change it, and we'll see.
Well, maybe we should make some predictions here today in this podcast.
All right.
All right.
What are you predicting?
Well, I'll predict if you'll predict. Will you
All right.
predict?
Yes.
All
We'll
right.
do predictions.
I think that, and I have to, disclose, I have no connection to this production or to, I don't know who's producing this thing, but I'm not part of the financing or the writing. I'm not on the creative side or the finance side. So I have no connection whatsoever to the project. So my completely uninformed opinion is I think it's going to have to do with colonization in the solar system. Because I think, didn't George used to work on Earth? He had an Earth job, right?
I think so. It's going to be with Jim Carrey. It's coming out this year, 2026. Jim Carrey, Kate Winslet.
So I'm predicting that the storyline will touch on colonization within our solar system. And it'll have a story thread of exploitation by developers on these foreign colonies. That's my prediction. What is your prediction? You didn't cheat by looking at the...
No, I didn't even. I
Okay.
just saw the cover of the movie. So the first thing I think is they'll do some sort of like funny callback to Elon Musk
Oh.
in trying to colonize space as like the forefather or some shit like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So I that's my
Elon
first
with a
prediction.
white beard or,
Yeah.
or something.
There'll
Yeah.
be some callback.
He'll
to
be
him.
on a walker. He'll get out of his Tesla and,
Yeah.
Do you think they'll have a Tesla jetpack or a some sort of flying Tesla?
Yeah.
Maybe an Easter egg in the film?
That could be. I mean, we'll see how. I'm just guessing to test the thing, but you're guessing the exploitation of workers and interdimensional.
Well, developers are always looking for real estate, and I don't think that they limit themselves, to the terrestrial, right? If you could build on a cloud, they would figure out a way, right? I mean, it's must build.
Yeah, we'll
Their
see.
reason for living. All right, so predictions right here. If we're wrong, do you think the predictions police are going to appear and take one of us away or both of us?
No, because I've made wrong predictions before and nothing's happened.
Oh, I've made so many.
No, nobody ever calls me out and says, "You charlatan, you false prophet. How dare you?" Yeah, no one cares.
Well, what were your wrong? Do you remember any of your wrong predictions way back when?
Oh shit! I remember I created this whole thing predicting like what day the homeless people were gonna die
Oh,
based on all the homeless deaths. But it was
Okay.
when I was first starting out as a data scientist, and I had
was this for school or on your own?
on my own.
Oh, because I would think that the school might have had an opinion on this topic. But go on.
Yeah, it's you can find it comes from the state of Connecticut. They reported all their homeless deaths or accidental drug deaths, is what it was. Accidental drug deaths. I mined through it. I found that if you're black, you got a 53% chance of having cocaine in your system if you're dead. Most of them were dying by fentanyl. And I thought you could predict the day that they're going to, like on which days were going to be the most. And I got those predictions, but those predictions were wrong. And they were wrong because I was reading the graph wrong.
Ooh.
Yeah, and it just goes
Did
back.
you have your data degree at that time?
I did. But it's
How
just...
do you explain the misread on the graph?
Just newbie, not...
Was it...
well, the misreads usually
was it
come from...
a conversion to metric?
No,
That screws up a lot of graphs.
No, the misread was in my ability to understand the scores.
Ah.
Yeah.
So you just weren't used to reading those types of
values.
Values.
In the end, no, you can't predict what days are going to be higher for drug overdose deaths. But what the data shows is it's exponentiating.
Well, there's value there, certainly.
Yeah.
Do you think you would want to maybe revisit that topic now that additional data
If they bring
is tracked?
If they bring more.
I think there is more tracking now. Certainly in this state. I think they track locations. You probably didn't even have locations in your data.
Yeah, we had lat longs.
And that was it. But was it by city or?
Oh, it had per city, per county. It was quite a bit. I mean, they kept a bunch of variables, like almost like 60 variables.
Do you think AI would be helpful to you? Do you think they might be able to uncover some relational something that wasn't immediately apparent?
Well, the large language models are helpful for figuring out the code that
That's
I
something.
can then manipulate. And that's generally what I use them for because they aren't that powerful to where I can do the stuff that I want to do. So like for example, the water heaters. So there's that water heater thing, and I thought there was a bunch of
Right, electric versus
like there's a
gas.
bunch of dead water heaters that die within the 0 to 1 year mark. I investigate, and because of that skewed the entire average of the lifespan for electric water heaters to 4.5 years. But when I actually went back, and Claude pushed back on me too, it's like, no, you need to, because I'm trying to figure it out. I'm like, why am I seeing this? But the thing is, I forgot a basic step, which is you need to remove the outliers. You have to remove the outliers. So
highest and lowest, you mean?
If any sort of outliers that are out there. So like 0 to 1 would be an outlier year. So once you remove the 0 to 1 outlier, and when I drilled down on the 0 to 1 years, it was only not that many. It wasn't that many. So it was noise. The thing is, outliers generate noise in graphs.
And you want quiet graphs?
You want graphs that are perfectly without outliers. Then you can make statistical predictions on.
So we could revisit this, it seems. We could revisit it right here in River City. We could revisit it in Spokane, right? Yes, I assume.
Oh, yeah, we could revisit.
The reason I would be interested is it would help with deployment of resources. If you really could predict, I think it would save a lot of taxpayer dollars, right? Instead of sort of generally deploying or sort of a blanket approach, it could be much more targeted and more efficient. No?
Yeah, if you could predict, like I thought I was able to, but I was wrong, then
Well,
you could.
It sounds like you were right, but that there was an execution glitch. That's what it sounds like to me. You could predict.
No, I can't predict it.
No?
Maybe
Even-
somebody else could. Maybe they could create a model. I couldn't. I was not able to predict it. At first, I thought I could predict it, but I wasn't predicting it correctly because I wasn't reading the scores correctly.
Well, but that seems fixable, no?
Yeah, that is fixable. And then I tried predicting. Then I went through again to try to predict it, but I can't.
Oh.
Some data
Yeah.
you can't predict.
Well, not yet. There's something missing. There's a key. It'll turn up.
Yeah. So when you were talking about the investigating labor violations and then dealing with all the ports,
Yeah.
those people, that makes a big, I'm sure that was really instrumental for you going to the New York Port Authority. So how did you get involved with them?
The New York Port Authority. Actually, I don't remember from my interview how interested they were in that, actually, because I think they were more focused on my hundreds and hundreds of hearings that I had under my belt. I mean, hundreds and hundreds. It did a lot for me working on the waterfront. You learn to deal with all kinds of people in all kinds of settings, under all kinds of pressure, and things can get rocky and have to be dealt with. And it's a very, very long-term relationship kind of situation because there's always going to be labor at the docks. And there's always going to be a little bit of a rocky set of facts. So I learned a lot. That was very valuable. I don't remember how I heard about the Port Authority, but it was some sort of application online. I don't even remember the process, but I do remember my interview. And it is very interesting work. There was an interesting case that came up recently, and I don't know how this is going to have an impact and if it does at all. But something, we deal with impounds and forfeitures and things like that. And something was impounded by the Port Authority, something of value. And because it was stolen and recovered, and they impounded it to hold it safely and protect it for the rightful owner. So it went into some sort of impound process. And when the rightful owner came to claim it, the Port Authority billed for all those days of storage and protection. Now, I don't think that the Port Authority had a choice. They certainly couldn't just leave this valuable asset, which was recovered from a thief, right, or of sorts, just sort of leave it around, right? You have to carefully guard these things. You have an obligation. You just impounded it, so you can't just be completely negligent and incompetent about preserving it in a reasonable way. But at the same time, the person who was the victim, right, the original owner, getting hit with a very significant storage and housing invoice, it just seemed to me there's got to be a better way. That is correct. That is a correct application of the law, and maybe the law will change at some point to allow for some sort of in the interest of justice. But right now, there is no other option. You get space in the impound. You got to pay to get your item out. We don't have the flexibility or the elasticity to waive all of that. And, those are taxpayer dollars for, that pay for all those housing all those items and so forth that are impounded. So it just looked very interesting to me, and we'll see how much noise comes off of that case, where perhaps there will be some loophole created where if someone is an innocent victim of a crime, they don't then get, first they were deprived of their asset, and now they have to pay this giant bill to get it back. It just seems like this is the sort of thing that at some point someone will enact some sort of broadening of the statute or give us a little bit more flexibility in how we apply the law. But right now we have no choice, and that was an actual case that I thought it was a little bit, I really felt for the individual who was the victim, of the theft initially, because I'm sure it was terribly upsetting to lose the asset. And now, oh my God, look at this bill to get this asset back. But sometimes that's the way justice, is administered, and it is the correct result based on the law that we have. Dang, I know. It can be rough. Life can be tough. I mean, I know that all the hearing officers are always trying to, do the right thing, certainly. I mean, it's why we get up in the morning. But to a great extent, our hands are tied. We just don't have a lot of, interest of justice options. Some courts do allow that. An officer could waive all of the, fees or fines or something. Sometimes that happens in traffic courts, but not with the law that we have right now.
So what would be one law that you would like to see changed that would help?
Ooh, that's a good one.
I know, that's a tough question. There's so many laws.
Right, which should make it easy, so I could pick anything, really.
Yeah.
It would be in the area of tax, and it would be specifically vacant property. A lot of investors like real estate as an investment. So they find a neighborhood and they buy up a bunch of houses. And all they're doing is waiting for the market to slowly creep up. And it's a great way to park some money and watch your money grow. And there's nothing wrong with buying houses, and there's nothing wrong with cashing in on equity as the market expands and climbs. The problem is a lot of these purchases are by out-of-town owners, so they're not invested in the community. They're just treating your community like it's a bank, and they're just getting compound interest or something equivalent. So not only are they not invested in the community, which makes a difference, quite often they don't develop the property at all. So normally you would think, well, an out-of-town investor would, try to engage tenants or something like that and make money by having tenants. Well, that's a lot of people think that having tenants long distances, challenging, and it is. So they don't have that income stream. These out-of-town investors don't develop that property as a rental. They just leave it to appreciate. And that changes the complexion of residential neighborhoods. And it happens very quickly. And there's a certain number of properties that are unimproved. And there is a need for housing. There isn't enough starter housing. A lot of people are having difficulty getting into the investment aspect of owning a home. So I think some sort of tax incentive to use the property and develop undeveloped properties in some way. I would like to see that change. I would like to see a vacant property tax in Spokane. I think it would help. It would help, and it would need to be fairly significant. It would need to be, in the multiple thousands per year for not developing, not using residential property, either, condos, single-family homes, duplexes, and so forth. So I think that's something that, and I know that Spokane has some budget challenges, and so if this helps to ease the budget challenges, and also helps preserve the character of neighborhoods. I think it might be the sort of thing that voters might vote in favor. They might vote thumbs up for that. So I would like to see that change. Thank you for that very good question.
Yeah.
Do you have another one in there
Well,
somewhere?
Well,
In that noodle of yours?
well, that drives back to what you've campaigned for in the past and what you're trying to campaign for in the future. So you have your law enforcement and small business and reduced taxes.
I do feel overtaxed, yes. And I understand that, taxes are a fact of life, and I don't actually mind taxation. I just feel that I'm overtaxed.
Yeah.
And there's just got to be a better. I think we need sort of a tax code overhaul. And I know we've had them before, and things do improve every time we have an overhaul. That's true. But I do think that it's not set up properly for the gig economy.
Mm-hmm.
And so many of us are gigsters. Even people with traditional employment work gigs on the side.
Mm-hmm.
And it just doesn't seem like the tax code is set up properly. We need to recognize the new world order, which is the gig economy. I don't think it's going away.
Yeah.
So I would be interested in a review of the tax code.
Yeah. And that brings up that that was talked about during the homelessness event that I went to, where they're talking about the Airbnbs.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking to somebody else yesterday about how you can get grants, and he's trying to get a grant to create a puppet show convention, like a puppet convention in Spokane.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah, and apparently you can get these grants, and these grants come from hotel tax money. But so it would be implied that you driving people to this convention. He's
Right.
but he's not sure how many people would show.
Well, initially everything's always kind of raggedy, but if it's a good convention and word gets around, it'll attract more and more. Is it really that different from Comic-Con? Probably not.
No.
Right, probably
not.
pretty similar. And what's bigger than Comic-Con? I mean, they have them around the nation, and you can't get tickets. Everybody wants to be there. So maybe PuppetCon could have some similar fandom.
PuppetCon sounds great.
Is this one of your predictions? You're predicting PuppetCon?
Well, I hope it comes out. He's pretty dedicated. Doug Stevens, he was on a couple guests ago. He wants to make this. He's dead set on doing this PuppetCon. So yay, we'll do it. He called it. Yeah, hey, he's got two perspective places. He has the Spokane Civic Theater that's locked down. They're on board.
Great.
And then he also wants to do it. He was thinking about Gonzaga University to do one.
Also a
part of
great
it.
choice.
So
Maybe Spokane Community Colleges?
that could
They have
be.
an active arts program. I mean, it sort of dovetails with puppets, no?
Yeah. There's all sorts of things, so he'll have to figure out how to do that.
Well, I hope he's successful. It's a wonderful art form. It's very ancient, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I would think that in a fairly cosmopolitan, very artistic city like Spokane, it would be very welcome.
Yeah, I hope it works out. Hopefully we'll get something going.
And he's a leader in puppeteering?
He has a small puppet group here in Spokane.
Small but mighty, I hope.
Small but mighty. Yeah.
They're scrappy.
Yeah, it's a ragtag group. So we'll see how well it turns out.
Well, it would be fun to have puppet making seminars with the experts, right?
Correct, and that's something.
Hands-on.
It's like, how would you do that? I would think like a convention, kind of like Comic-Con, right? There's different people at booths and different puppeteers, and
Right, but there's also the history, right?
there's history, yeah.
And it's very multicultural, so, I mean, I don't think any one person really knows everything there is to know, so it would be great to visit all the different presentations.
Yeah, and there's more to puppetry than just the puppets. There's also filming. There's the cameras, the camera equipment, and that whole
All the technology.
all the technology behind it. And
I can see a 3-day conference rolling out here.
to include the 3D printers for 3D printing of puppets, and so
Well, I think it would add immeasurably to our city.
I think it would. I hope it comes to fruition.
Well, maybe he could come back on the podcast and give an update at some point.
Yeah, I hope so. So when it comes to you're on the Board of Equalization. You
Yes,
said that. So
for the county.
Is the Board of Equalization, is that the same for every county?
We all report to the state, and all of our appeals go to the state. So we have certain similarities, but they are run slightly differently, county to county, as you would imagine.
And the Board of Equalization, what things do they handle generally?
When you don't like your property tax bill, and I don't know anyone, I've never met anybody who's gotten the property tax bill and said, oh, good. I've met lots and lots of people who look at that and say, don't you know I'm on a fixed income? Mm-hmm. So if you believe that the assessment number for the value of your home and land is incorrect for some reason, let's say there's an understanding at the county level that you have a 4-bedroom home, but it's actually a 3-bedroom home with less square footage than is in the county records. You come with an appeal, and we take a look, and we listen to both sides, and we look at some very, very extensive files. We look at absolutely everything. And we're very careful in what we do. We understand that there's more than one way to analyze the value of a structure or land. But as long as it's a correct manner of analysis, we'll consider absolutely everything, and we'll listen, very attentively, and we're all very well prepared. And then we have in-depth conversations in closed session, following the hearings. And we do need a majority to agree. So we really do delve deeply into every detail. But if the assessment looks sound, then the taxpayer is responsible for the bill and, of course, has the right to appeal. Or we can say to the assessor, we think that there was some glitch here, there was something incorrect, there's something that's not borne out by the facts that we just learned here in our hearing, and then we can adjust your bill downward. It's well worth thinking about. Most people don't even know that there is an appeal process, and there is. But we take it so seriously because we fund the state. So if we bring down somebody's property tax bill for whatever reason, there is no counterbalance that fills in the difference. It just takes the money away from the state. And we are very sensitive to the fact that we need a fair and equivalent tax system for all the property tax in our county. And once that's achieved, it's very helpful to the state to fund all the state's programs. But the state apparently has a tremendous budget deficit. I mean, there's some sort of budget crisis. And I think there's a feeling that it's very tail wagging the dog, that if there's a budgetary crisis, that there's pressure on the Board of Equalization to keep all the tax assessments high. And I just want to assure everybody who's listening that that is not the case. We are completely separate and apart. There's no pressure on us to attach the results of our hearings to budgetary problems at the state level. We really do listen case by case, fact by fact, and we take it very seriously. So to the extent that anybody is really into property tax, I hope that's helpful.
Well, that was cool, because what you just said was, if we all coordinated, all these property tax owners, and they said, you know what, we're going to coordinate. And through the Board of Equalization, we're going to not pay as much property tax, because we're going to have all of our appeals approved, and the west side of the state won't get the money.
That would be tough to pull off. Because you've got to get through us, and we're going to be listening to everything you say. When you come in, you have to explain why.
I know,
the
you
fact
would have
that
to be
there's
colluding.
No, we're never going to do
No,
that.
you would have to collude. That's the thing.
No collusion. But we do listen to a lot of people discuss water. Water is really a big issue. There's wells that don't work. There's wells that don't work well enough. There's property with no water that has very limited use. There's, parts of farms might have a pond, but another part doesn't. And we hear a lot about water and water access and wells. And people pay a lot of money for wells, and sometimes they don't even work. There's no guarantees with wells, really.
Yeah, I know.
Right, and you don't know when you're going to hit granite,
Yeah, I've known people who have blown through their money drilling wells. They think they can get this property, and yeah, that's crazy. So does a working well affect your property taxes?
It can, yeah. Or not your property taxes directly, but your property value. And your property value affects your property tax, yeah. A little indirect, but yes. A property with no water has more limited uses, and so has maybe less value. Fewer people would be interested in buying it. Some land is very encumbered with easements and access limits and lack of access, and all of that is part of what makes land valuable. Every piece of land has some value. Even no water, no access, no nothing, still has value. It's land. But we can fine tune it, and the assessor's office is quite expert in analyzing all of these issues. Same thing with commercial real estate. Sometimes they have difficulty selling. Sometimes they have limited occupancy, right? They can't seem to get above 40% occupancy at a time. All of these things are things that we discuss and consider. Because, what's the problem at this building that you can't get occupancy above 50%? Like, what are the limits here? Is there some inadequacy going on? And it's an opportunity to really delve into what the facts are.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the point of hearings, is that due process aspect. You have an opportunity to be heard. So come, be heard. Come, share facts. We want to develop the record as fully as possible so that we have the best possible record to consider and make a decision on. So, exercise your due process rights. There's lots of people in the world who don't have due process, but we have it here. We have it in Washington, and we have it in the United States. We have it at the federal level and the municipal level and the state level. I think a lot of Americans take it for granted or don't think about it and think, well, I'll never prevail, so I'm never going to bother. I think that's a mistake. Suit up and show up. You just don't know what sympathetic hearing officer you're going to get who's going to say, what, no water? That's a travesty. That's a tragedy. You don't know. So come and exercise the rights that are given to you to due process. You get your notice, which is your letter, and then you have this opportunity to be heard. And, it's why we show up. There's a bunch of us, and we show up so that we can listen and hear. I think there's a feeling that everything is a foregone conclusion, that no one can ever win because everything is fixed and the fix is in. Mm-hmm. And maybe in some jurisdictions that is the case. I don't know. I can't be everywhere and I can't know what everyone's thinking, but I do know that everything I've participated in, we take it so seriously and we try so hard to consider every aspect of every fact that is before us and really consider deeply and discuss in real detail. And we take it very seriously. So I would say it's the opposite of the fixes in. I would say it's a blank slate. Come write your position down on the slate and let us see it and hear it and ask you questions about it. I hate to see people despair that there is no real listening. There's no real opportunity to be heard. There is. And I just want to assure anyone who's listening to this podcast, I know it can be discouraging when you hear about weird court cases and strange outcomes and odd, determinations. There's many, many, many more determinations made every day that are very thoughtful and really do make a difference to people and in their lives. And I don't want you to think that just the outliers are determinative, because they really are just outliers. And that's why they're trumpeted all around the internet, is because they're so weird. Don't think that that's the norm. It's not. The norm is, people don't listen to hours of tax appeals because they don't care. We all care very much, and it's why we get up early and ask questions and probe and so forth. And we disagree with each other. It's pretty normal. So you never know when you're going to have an advocate in closed session. Someone's going to like your argument and is going to say, hey, we need to spend a lot of time figuring this case out, and I think we should take this argument seriously. You don't know what's happening to your case after you submit it, but there very well could be a lot more support for you than you realize, and I don't want people to be discouraged.
Yeah.
Exercise your due process. It's a wonderful right, and so many people don't have it. Don't take it for granted. The worst that thing that'll happen is you'll lose nothing. You'll be right where you were when you walked in the door.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true. It's the worst they can say is no.
Right, and you're right back where you started, and nothing changed, pretty much. So all it took was a little bit of thought the night before, or whatever day the deadline was for getting your materials in timely, and then you show up. Drive in, pay the meter price or whatever, and for an hour. It's not that burdensome to exercise this very important right.
Yeah, a lot of people don't exercise their rights because, like you said, they feel they've already lost.
I hate to see that, and I don't know why. Is there really pervasive? I guess it would be graft or corruption. Is that true? Is there? What do you think? You have a lot of podcast guests with a lot of different positions on a lot of different topics. What do you think?
It's hard to get people to vote. That's for sure.
What do you think that's about?
Because people are lazy generally.
Too lazy to put a ballot in the mail?
Yeah, they're too lazy to do that. So they're too lazy to exercise their right to vote. They don't even want to. People don't even want to exercise their First Amendment rights unless they're like emotionally triggered. Because a lot of people, example is being out in public. like the politeness in working with people and how polite and fake people can be. So you're selling a fake version of yourself. You're suppressing your freedom of speech to sell a fake version of yourself to other people, just so you won't possibly offend people with what you say.
But don't we need to all get along in public? Should we be shouting obscenities privately rather than publicly?
I don't know.
What do you think?
I believe as an American
Yes.
that I should be able to stand outside and shout obscenities until my lungs are done.
Okay. So the obscenities that you're shouting, is it about politics? Because political speech is very prized and very highly protected.
Yeah.
Do you want to scream about politics? And
No, I want to go and I want to scream about how the burger restaurant down the street messed up my order and they're really slow and they're really crappy and I'm going to tell everyone about it.
Well, that's can be upsetting. Understood. But there might be some municipal rules prohibiting you from standing outside and screaming, especially during quiet hours. Were you going to yell at night when people are trying to sleep? Because people get upset about that.
I know, all these people trying to steal my freedom of speech and impose on my rights.
So you think that the government is wrong to legislate quiet time at night, is that right? You want to be able to yell at night about your burger order that got bungled, your bungled burger?
Yep. I'm going to scream about it at night and scream and scream and scream.
Until
No,
your
I
lungs
get
are
it.
done.
I get it. In this society, I've given up my ability to scream until... No, I can scream until it's past screaming hours.
Right, I think screaming hours probably end at like 10
Okay,
or something like that. And most people who work, are not going to want to hear screaming while they're eating dinner. So you're going to run into some pushback there.
Yeah.
Do you think there's any utility in that? Is there utility in screaming about bungled burgers?
There is probably, you might affect one person. You might change one person's mind.
And that would be worth it.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
It'd probably be easier just to leave a nasty Google review.
Well, which begs the question, which burger place are we talking here?
I'm just ABC Burgers. I'd say ABC Burgers was just a shitty place.
Okay. Well, maybe it would be considered commercial speech, and some commercial speech does have protection. False advertising is not protected First Amendment speech. There's no protected right to say that we have great burgers when we don't have great burgers. It's possible that you might find a sympathetic ear on a First Amendment defense. If somebody came to try to haul you away because you were making sounds. But I'm not sure you would win during quiet hours.
Yeah,
You
probably
might-
not.
Right. So you may want to just...
Disturbing the peace.
Yeah. First Amendment is sometimes limited to reasonable time, place, and manner of speech.
Oh, reasonable time, place, and manner of speech. Now
Right.
we're learning the limitations of the First Amendment.
The First Amendment has limitations. That's exactly right. But it does protect truthful commercial speech to a great extent. There's a unique analysis. It's not the same as for political speech, but there is a multi-part analysis for protecting commercial speech. And this was not always the case. Commercial speech used to not have much protection at all under the First Amendment. But eventually the court shifted and felt that how people spend their money is an important interest for, I don't think they said taxpayers. I guess, anyone who's availing themselves of opportunity to speak. But there's no protection for false advertising. So if you say, something is made of gold and it's really just shiny brass, there's no protections for you there. Interestingly, there was for a while, and it might not be entirely over, some First Amendment controversy about stolen valor. Are you familiar with the stolen valor cases?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, right. So does the First Amendment protect lies that are uttered in the course of political speech, right? Someone is running for office and claims to have earned a military accolade or whatever, an award of some sort, as part of the stump speech to run for office. So those are some interesting competing interests there.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that it used to be illegal to do stolen valor, but then now it's not illegal.
Well, it would be, I mean, I know it's called stolen, but I don't know if it's criminal. I don't know if you run the risk of incarceration, but it's interesting that the First Amendment would ever be pressed into service to protect a lie. The First Amendment just is not for that. And there's a long history of commercial speech that's not true, losing its First Amendment protections. So it's interesting how the stolen valor cases sort of worked their way through some interesting conflict.
Yeah. And fraud vitiates all that it touches.
Yes, fraud vitiates all that it touches. I've heard that.
Yeah.
Thank you for reminding me about that. I was considering that in the context of fraud and the inducement in a business contract that contained an arbitration clause. If there was fraud in the inducement, but for the fraud, there would be no arbitration clause. But the arbitrator would be vested with the power to determine if the arbitration clause is severable, maybe, or might survive somehow if the fraud didn't directly affect the arbitration clause. There's quite a few cases on it, but they're kind of all over the map. I thought that was a very interesting issue, and I'm an arbitrator, and I'm kind of wondering when some very creative young associate is going to come up with some very creative arguments, and I'll have a chance to consider all of that as part of my job.
Cool.
Yeah, it's going to be very cool. The Securities and Exchange Commission is considering quite a few changes to its arbitration program. I don't know how much of it's going to pass, but it's out for comment currently. And it's my understanding that it's a fairly robust program. The Securities and Exchange Commission has an enforcement arm, which is the Finance Industry Regulatory Authority, FINRA, which a lot of people are familiar with. And so, it seems to me that FINRA arbitrators are pretty busy, and the FINRA program is working pretty well. And I think they're looking for ways to make it work even better. They just rolled out an app. Hard to believe we didn't have one before, but we have one now, and that's what matters. Expungements are now a separate proceeding from any sort of underlying case. So the program really is being refined in a very nice way, and I think people are going to find that it's getting better and better. But I am interested in kind of how we're going to be approaching this fraud and the inducement on the contract, which contains the very arbitration clause that is, people are seeking to get the benefit of. And I mean, once you are part of a fraud, there's the unclean hands consideration. It's tough to argue fairness when you're the one who has the unclean hands because you initiated that fraud or participated in it or somehow got an advantage because of it. So something that, at some point will be considered, and eventually, there will be a consensus, but I don't think there is one yet. So it's an area that's very useful if you want to defend or attack an enforcement in arbitration. You want to get into arbitration, you want to get out of arbitration. It depends on which side you're on.
Mm-hmm. Well, cool. Well, we've been running. We're at an hour 30 now, so.
Are you bored?
No. Not at all. But once we get to hour 30, it'll shut off.
Well, I wanted to thank you for the opportunity.
Well, no, there's still some more questions.
Oh, all right. I'll thank you later.
Well, first question is book recommendations. What book recommendations do you have?
An encyclopedia of early American tools.
Oh, yeah. That's a good book recommendation. Cool. That's a nice one.
I just bought Abraham Lincoln's Quips and Wisdom, Wit and Quips and Wit, something like that. I hadn't seen that before. That was very interesting. I have Latin Quips at your fingertips. That's a good one. If you want to get kicked out of cocktail parties, speak a little Latin. You'll be gone in no time. What else? I spend a fair amount of time with Robert's Rules of Order. I'm a big admirer of Roberts. He was an engineer. A lot of people don't know that. And he was personally very frustrated with, I think it was his church meetings. Everyone was very well-meaning, but they never accomplished anything. And that's how we have the rules.
Nice.
He didn't just complain. He did something about it.
Well, good.
Yes, and we're all very thankful.
Nice.
Next question.
Oh, and well, this is the last but not least.
Oh.
Where can people find you?
Oh, you can find me at Lisa Miller for you at yahoo.com, and it's Arabic numeral 4. And you can call my campaign headquarters, 509-799-6100. Where else can you find me? You can find me at all the homelessness task force meetings. I have very good attendance there, and the public is always welcome, so please come and bring your questions and your concerns. It's why we show up. Where else can you find me?
Lex Law.
Lex Law, which is my arbitration business, and most city council meetings. I would love to say I always sit in the front, but I don't always sit in the front. So you'll have to ask around if you want to find me.
Cool.
And look for my newsletter, the Precinct Post, which is going to voters in Spokane Valley who are, I think it's registered Republicans. And it, sort of touches on local and state politics. Items that are of interest specifically in Spokane Valley.
Perfect. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast with Lisa as much as I did. Be sure to hit the like button, leave all questions in the comments below, check out her links in the video description, and hit that subscribe button and smash that bell for more data-driven updates. And I will see you next time.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on. Bye.
Data Mining Mike podcast that you like.